Hello, everyone. And Rent and I are back at the studio. We would like to thank Ben for taking over from us. We hope you enjoyed either roundtables, either the films.
And as you can see, we are back in our living room in the studio, which means we have another guest. And now we're happy to have with us a young change maker from Ashoka, Miss Alejandra Acosta. She is the founder of a nonprofit known as Break the Silence, which is an organization that aims to raise awareness on human trafficking, especially for the young people.
Thanks for having me.
We're happy to have you in the studio.
So Alejandra, thank you again for coming, and thank you for being another young person in our studio to talk to us. And can you tell us briefly about the work you do?
Yes, as he said, I'm the founder of a nonprofit called Break the Silence that fight against human trafficking, and the way we do it is raising awareness on the topic. Because when I first heard about this issue, I was 18 years old, and I have never heard before of what human trafficking is. So I decided I needed to create awareness because in my country, Spain, where I live, there's a huge lack of awareness on this, and almost 45,000 women and young girls are victims of this issue. So this is what I do. I create awareness, I build capacities on policymakers, and I also work with the private sector, with businesses, so they can take action against trafficking where they are.
It's inspiring to see a young person like you doing all this work. And we're curious, what is the motivation behind the work that you do, especially to fight human trafficking?
Well, I first heard about this when I was 18 years old, and I think it comes also from my family. I come from a family of pastors that work in Colombia as pastors, and they work with people in really vulnerable situations. They work with people in drugs, they work with prostitutes, and I think watching them creating impact around them inspired me to do the same when I had the ability to do it.
Thank you for sharing that with us. You know, it's always good to know the personal story behind what people do, because it always impacts much more those who are viewing us and those who know what motivates you. But we would also like to ask you the question, what are the important roles that the youth have in fighting against human trafficking? How do you see our role as young people in that?
Well, I see that we have a lot of potential to actually change things. I believe maybe I won't see the end of slavery, but maybe, I don't know, my nieces can see it, my daughter can see it. Maybe the next generation is the generation that is actually going to end human trafficking around the world. And I think our role is special and is important because we sadly are the most vulnerable population to human trafficking, especially during COVID. I have seen how traffickers have used social networks to traffic persons online, especially young women and girls. So we are vulnerable, but we are also at the places where human trafficking happens. So we are at a position where with the right information, we can be the ones that detect this trafficking situation. So we have a lot of potential to create change.
Well, I'm happy to hear your work in fighting human trafficking because, just to share an example, us in Religions for Peace Philippines also worked to push communities and religious leaders to fight and combat human trafficking. Along that line, I wanted to know from you, what do you think would be the important role that religious leaders and religious communities can do in order to combat human trafficking?
I believe it's essential that faith-based communities get engaged into this fight, because actually when I first heard about a human trafficking story was at a church service. So that's the potential the church has to put on the table these difficult issues that we must address as a society. So when I heard this issue at a church, I decided I had to do something. And when I had to do something, I started to study, to get informed on what was my role as a teenager fighting against trafficking. And when it comes to church, we are into communities, we are present in neighborhoods, so we have that capacity to see what is happening and to detect vulnerable persons with the right information and the right tools. And this is why I'm here, to raise that awareness on faith leaders so they can identify victims into their environments.
Today, during one of the conversations with Thomas Perrow, we heard that peace building starts from each of us. You know, It's important to have institutions, religious leaders, political leaders, but each individual matters. So we are interested, how can everyone actually support you in the fight against human trafficking? What we as individuals also can do to support this cause?
I would say the first thing is spread the word. Now you know human trafficking exists. You have a responsibility to get informed and see what you can do in your environment. And a great way to start is spreading the word on the people you know. The second thing people can do is not buying for sex. Sadly, sexual exploitation has a really huge connection with prostitution. So when people buys for sex or maybe consumes pornography, they are facilitating human trafficking. And another thing we can do is volunteer. Let's look for organizations doing impact into human trafficking issues in our environments, and let's volunteer for them. We need your talent.
Actually, we need those resources really to help the work that you're doing. And although you mentioned a while ago the reason why you're here and what you'll be telling our religious leaders, although we don't want to spoil your lighting talk tomorrow, but tell our viewers what they can expect so that they'll look forward to your session tomorrow.
Well, I'm going to share a little bit my personal story because that is very linked with my job, and I'm gonna put practical examples of how change making happens into communities. I'm an example of how young people can get up and be a change maker, and I want to share that to inspire other people to be change makers against trafficking in their communities.
Amazing. We are looking forward actually to that lightning talk, and I'm sure also our audience is looking forward to that. But in our informal chat here before we started, you said that this is your first time to be in Lindau, but also obviously first time on the Generations in Dialogue and in general with Religions for Peace. So did you make a nice Generation in Dialogue experience here in Lindau? Have you had a chance to, speak to people and see how this actually works in practice, the generations that are dialoguing?
Yes, I have seen a cool space to exchange ideas with people from another context, countries, generations, and it has been so enriching. But we have room for improvement, bringing more young people at the table. Today, I heard how young people can bring fresh and new ideas and energy to the table, but I wonder that we should be there even when we don't have new ideas, because at the end, there's a lot of people bringing their opinions into the table, even when they don't have fresh ideas. They must be represented just because it's a fundamental right. So it happens the same for young people. We should be there at the table.
Inspiring. And since you are a young person, engaged in this issue of human trafficking, which we all know is a very serious problem in the world, how does it feel to be a young person, working with older people, dealing with governments, other civil society organizations, and even religious communities? How does it feel to be a young person doing all of this?
I think it feels overwhelming sometimes. It's like you see the whole issue and you question yourselves, what am I doing here sometimes? But it's also inspiring because you get to learn from people who has been doing the same thing you do for many years. So I also get so inspired by the legacy some people is leaving behind me. So that's inspiring.
Wow.
Thank you very much for sharing that as well. And I'm really hoping that young people out there are actually listening to us, and not just young people, but also seniors, leaders, political leaders, religious leaders, and that they will actually take something from this, implement it in their communities, and involve much more young people, because you're a perfect example how a young person sees a problem which is like omnipresent, and probably every society on the world has this issue. But you saw it and you heard it in your religious community, which is super important to emphasize. The religious leaders have this impact and they have this, approach to people, so they can actually talk to people. So this is super important. But I wanted also to ask you one more question, if you allow me, of course.
Sure.
What do you take away from your stay here in Lindau for your work? Are there any takeaways you will bring with you, maybe some people that you met, some people that inspire you, or some people that actually can help you in your further work?
I have met amazing people here. It has been so inspiring, but I think the lesson I'm taking with me is that there's still room for doing more things. I don't want to get conformed, but what I'm doing, I want to do more. I'm capable of doing more and implementing more new ideas, especially in faith-based communities. There is a lot of room for implementing new ideas so we can fight together against trafficking.
Okay. Beautiful. Rent, do you have any questions for our Alejandra?
I was really inspired by the work that you're doing, and I believe a lot of the young people here now are also inspired and hopefully are motivated to do the work that you're doing also.
I hope so.
So we wish to thank you for sharing with us the work you do, for inspiring young world all around the world, because I think most of them are now inspired, because I really feel inspired by having this young person with us, and I really hope that in the next conferences, in the next gatherings, we will have much more people like Alejandra who will be sharing their experiences with us.
Hopefully that will happen in the future. Well, although some of us are here in Lindau, of course, it is much important for us that you who are joining virtually would also be able to join us in the studio. And this conference, of course, would not be what it is now without all of you. So let's see some videos from our greeting platform to see messages from around the world.
Hello, this is Florence from Uganda, the chairperson of Interfaith Women and the Religious Council of Uganda.
Hello, I'm sending greetings to the world from Fundación Mejora.
Hello, the beloved community of Lindau.
Hi everybody, this is Kulegani Magwaza in Cape Town.
Hello, I'm Mama Shamsa from Kenya.
Welcome from Canada. Bienvenue du Québec.